The following podcast, iDesign Lab, is an SW Group production in association with the Scott Woolley Entertainment Company and TW Interiors. This is iDesign Lab, a podcast where creativity and curiosity meet style and design. Curators of interiors, furnishings, and lifestyles. Hosted by Tiffany Woolley, an interior designer and a style enthusiast, along with her serial entrepreneur husband, Scott. iDesign Lab is your ultimate interior design podcast, where we explore the rich and vibrant world of design and its constant evolution in style and trends. iDesign Lab provides industry insight, discussing the latest trends, styles, and everything in between to better help you style your life through advice from trendsetters, designers, influencers, fabricators, and manufacturers, as well as personal stories that inspire, motivate, and excite. So whether you're listening to iDesign Lab in your car or in a cozy nook in your home, grab a coffee or a Chardonnay and join us on this elevated, informative, and lively journey into the world of all things design. Our special guest today is Lenny Felberbaum, an extremely accomplished entrepreneur. Lenny is a fourth-generation realtor. Selling real estate is quite literally in Lenny's blood. After attending the University of Miami, Lenny entered the family business developing condominiums in Miami Beach. By the late 2000s, Lenny had become one of the top real estate producers in the Palm Beach County, Florida. In 2018, the international real estate firm Engle and Volkers announced that Lenny would become the licensed partner and broker for Engle and Volkers, Delray Beach, Florida, placing Lenny into an elite group of real estate advisors worldwide. Of the 11,000 real estate professionals who represent Engle and Volkers in over 30 countries, Lenny is one of less than 100 advisors selected to carry the title of Private Office Advisor in North America. Today, Lenny is one of the top real estate brokers in South Florida and has made an incredible mark in the South Florida real estate market. Lenny, thanks for joining us today.
Tiffany and Scott, thank you for having me. We're in unusual times.
We are.
Right now. So,
very much so.
And we're 6 feet apart.
We're
social distancing.
We're socially distant.
I didn't bring my tape measure.
Which is good.
Well, Lenny brings, one thing I just thought of when we were talking briefly before is that you were born here or New York?
I was born in New York.
New York. So between New York City and then you had mentioned you were starting early in Miami and went to school in Miami. I mean, those two cities are design hubs, I would say. So the evolution of design, you've seen a lot.
Yes. It's an interesting point that you bring up because even back in the 70s, Miami had a very vibrant design district.
Yep.
And because I was explaining to you when we built our first major project down here, we used, I think it was called Casa D'Angelo, Casa something.
Was it a design firm or?
It was a furniture design firm. It was all Italian products.
Yeah, the design district was in business then. I mean, some of those stores still are there.
Yeah, in the same area. Yeah. So that's where people, South Florida was a completely different market then. But that's where all the people in Miami Beach that lived in the condos, that's where they went to for their, design ideas.
Was there like a big New York-Miami connection like there is now back at that time?
Yes, yeah.
There was.
It was primarily New Yorkers. What was unique about the project that we were doing, it was at the tail end of Seacoast Towers, and which were primarily New York people that bought the condos. This project,
second vacation,
second homes,
luxury,
so right up the block from the Fontainebleau and the Doral.
Right.
So you have the Engle Volkers real estate business, Shingle in Delray Beach, that we know does a lot of real estate business in this South Florida area. You're, I'll say, a player in the community, moving a lot of real estate. So a great question to ask you is design in people's homes and the way in which the design looks in their homes. How important do you think it is to helping you in selling homes?
I would say that the design is probably the most important factor. When you walk into a home and it's cohesive and has a feel and a definition, it makes it much, much easier to sell. And even if potential clients, don't adhere to that style, like if you walked into a
model.
Yeah, but people want, I think the models are good to sell things, but I think when you're selling like resale homes, people get a feeling when they walk into a home.
So do you notice or do you recognize when you're walking into a home for the first time, or you're taking on the listing, or you're showing a home that maybe you don't have the listing for, but it's your first time you're seeing it? Do you notice or can you tell immediately that this home was put together by a group or designer, or the homeowner really knew what they were doing? Is there a comparison that you can tell that?
Absolutely. You could tell pretty much right away how it looks. In fact, I just, a couple of months ago, sold a house that was built in 1979. Mm-hmm. And it was, the people had just passed away, and their children were selling it. And they spent, the house was about
79, so like 80s vibe.
And they were telling me they came from Great Neck, Long Island.
Right. Sophisticated.
And they spent the same amount. The house was $300,000, and they spent $300,000 on decorating it. And
Well, what was the value then when they were trying to sell it?
All these years later.
all these years later, well, they got about almost a little over $800,000 for it.
So it sustained the value.
Yeah, it sustained the value. And what was interesting is we were sitting in the living room, and there were three siblings and their spouses, and they started laughing. And I said, did I say something funny? And they said, no. We were just thinking at the same time, nobody's ever sat in this living room. You know, they had a beautiful dining room table.
That reminds me when I was a kid. We weren't allowed to sit in the living room.
Exactly.
Well, that's why formal living rooms are kind of...
My sister and I always used to say to my parents, like, why is it called a living room? Because we certainly don't live in it. We don't even go in it.
Yeah, they hadn't even eaten in the dining room. They used their den, their kitchen, and the bedroom, and that was it. So
when you sold it to the new homeowner, was that somebody who actually appreciated that and wanted to bring, or would they?
That's why I brought this up. He walked into the house and he looked around and he said, I have to have this house.
Right.
And then he looked at his agent and he said, I probably shouldn't have said that in front of me. And he's keeping most of the basic elements. He actually wanted to buy it furnished, and that negotiation didn't work out. But the cohesive way that it was designed, and I want to show you the.
I would love to.
I want to show you because they had the whole entry hall was, floor to ceiling like oak tambour.
Wow.
And all of the doors. I mean, so it looked spectacular.
And it stood the test of time.
It absolutely stood the test of time. Everything was custom done.
A lot of built-in.
A lot of built-ins, and the built-ins are still like in the master bedroom and the living room were absolutely beautiful. They're not going to change it.
No, and I feel like that style's actually come full circle right now again.
Yeah, they had beautiful, like a lot of the tables and the lights were showing a lot of brass, which is
totally back again.
Come back. It was a huge room, so there was a lot of seating areas, but the tables were really nice. They had a really nice card table that was glass, chrome, and brass.
I love it.
So, I mean, every part about it was really interesting. But to see the way the house was, it was truly decorated.
It was like a turnkey.
Yeah.
So let's go back to design. And today, from a design standpoint, in South Florida, because we're in South Florida, so
Luxury market, I would say, too, as well as a vacation market.
where are you seeing a particular design style that's more popular than another?
Well, I would say architecturally, you're seeing a lot of modern homes.
Right. How do you feel about that?
And in those homes, you can only decorate it one way.
One way.
It's got to be very modern.
Correct.
And it's beautiful to look at.
Appreciate it.
But it's not comfortable living.
Right, but what happens then with the next person when it's going up for sale, it's limiting the amount of buyers because there's not a lot of opportunity for, looking at it and changing it, because to change something like that is a dramatic and drastic and expensive undertaking.
Well, it's exactly what people that have Tuscan homes.
Right, you could paint the
are
whole
going through
interior
now.
white or...
And I think even a Tuscan home, you could modernize it
Right.
by colors and changing
Furniture.
materials. A very, very modern home is very hard to decorate in a more traditional way.
Right, or transitional.
Or farmhouse or...
Right. And how, do people, when they come to you, do they say they want a specific feel, or what are they looking for mainly? A certain amount of bedrooms or a certain amount of...
That's a good question. Depends if it's a second home or a first home.
Right. I feel like that's big with decorating as well.
Then I think that they're looking more for we feel like we sell a lifestyle.
Me too.
And that ties into designing, because you're designing around somebody's lifestyle. So, I have a house now that we had it under contract and it fell apart, because of the coronavirus. But the buyers loved the design. They had a lot of Lily Pulitzer drapes.
Wow.
And she asked for certain furniture, and it was 2 chairs that were kind of Lily Pulitzer.
Like a Palm Beach Regency.
Exactly. And it matched the drapes in the room and everything. And the seller was so appreciative
That
they liked the way she
Their style.
decorated the house, that it really helped the buyers, not knowing it. It helped them negotiate a good price, because
they were happy their home was being enjoyed and loved
who
again.
was buying it appreciated it. You'll get people that, and most of my practice is resale homes. We do a decent amount of new construction, but in downtown Delray Beach, we have a lot of older homes. So a lot of them are resales. So getting people to either look around the design and having the vision to make it their own, or finding something that looks like it would fit them.
Right. And in Delray, those older homes that you're talking about go back 30 years, 40 years, and a lot of them are being knocked down or completely redone. I mean, it's just a whole change in the community of how they're being done. So I guess most people are looking at it from a different perspective, from a design, that they're not really looking at what it is, but what they could possibly do with it.
Exactly. But take for example, the Lake Ida area.
Which I love, right? I have a lot of clients in that area.
And it's it's got a lot of character, because it wasn't track built. And you have a lot of old Florida.
Ranch style.
And you have ranch style. You
We
have
got a lot of styles
mission
in there.
style.
You got the canals in there, the 2 big lakes.
So what seems to be people have been doing lately is just one style of modern.
Right.
And it's appealing to a certain amount of buyers. I think the big mystery or question is
The resale.
the resale, and will it stand the test of time?
Yeah.
In Miami Beach, they've been doing it longer.
But Miami Beach, that architecture of the modern, I feel like was not as mid-century. I feel like it was more of the white, a lot of windows because you're on the water or you're the beach view, and it had more of a deco,
Right, had a
circle
deco
feel to it. Where now we're kind
And the
of
sand, it kind of went in with the sand because a lot of them are on the beach. But a lot of these homes in Delray and in Boca and in Boynton that are being done, and around the country, they're not necessarily on the water or on the beach. Because I think of these ultra-modern or very contemporary homes to the homes that are out on on Long Island in the Hamptons.
well, you
that
just
are right
kind
on the
of know
beach.
that area, like there's all the modern homes kind of stick together in the Hamptons versus
Right.
them
So
popping up in the
here
middle of this
it's like
adorable little...
it's like pepper. It's a peppering of the neighborhood.
Correct.
And
What do you feel is the reaction of the neighbors regarding that you're hearing?
A lot of the old timers, the people that lived here, including a lot of the people in the real estate business, don't really care for it. They feel it's very cold and sterile, and
Well, it's been hot for a while. I think that the hotness of that is kind of tapering off, and
Well, and I feel like they're a little more on the generic side, but one thing about the design I've noticed regarding those houses and the resale or the original sale of these houses is they all are a staging atmosphere. And I feel like all the pieces are the same. Do people viewing the houses ever pick up on that?
I don't know if buyers actually do, but it's interesting that you brought that up because there's a handful of staging companies.
Right. And it's like a
And
repeat.
There used to be a difference between them, and now, like in other words, you would walk into a new house and you could tell who staged it.
Right.
But now you can't because they all
doing
they
the
all
same
look
thing.
They all look exactly the same. They have the same artwork on the walls. The black and white.
And is it
animals.
really enticing people?
Yes.
So it works.
It definitely works. People, I find most buyers
So you're talking about staging.
staging. Most buyers don't have
The vision.
A vision.
So
I
then
think
do
most
they buy it?
consumers, like once they buy a house and now they're moving into that empty house, don't have a vision of what it can look like or how are they going to make it look, which brings.
When they do the staging, do they purchase the home furnished at the end? Is that
A lot of times they
They
do.
do.
A lot of times they do. Especially in the new construction.
Do you know with the staging too? Do they sign like a long term? Is it like a lease of the?
Yeah,
How
it's
does it?
usually a 3-month minimum. Usually it's a 6-month contract.
So as a homeowner who's looking to sell their house,
You can stage it.
staging it, realizing, well, I don't have the right furniture or it needs to be changed and updated, or someone like you, or someone on your team going in and telling the homeowner who's looking to sell their home, you really should think about staging this and
staging. Say it costs $30,000 to $40,000 to stage a house.
Okay.
For 6 months. Depending on the price range of the home, and I would say this is in the $2 million and up range. That expenditure will usually bring you back 3 to 4 times your investment, but more importantly, it will get your property sold.
So, is the staging and the decorating companies that you're aware of, are they like interchangeable, or how does it? That's kind of an avenue I'm not 100% familiar.
Well, you've stayed away from staging. You basically have just focused on
Residential.
developing a style and a lifestyle for a person around them and the couple or the family. You've had a lot of different
I like
people
end
come to you for
users.
staging.
I like
I
the
think
process.
The staging.
Well, we did another podcast where we talked about staging because how I look at staging, it's temporary.
Exactly.
Tiffany doesn't, and what she's done with TW Interiors isn't temporary. It's creating a lifestyle for a family It's an investment for the future and
Long
an investment for
Like hopefully
their
my
home.
clients will have people like your friends that you just sold their house that love and appreciate it 30 years later, 40 years later. That's where my passion is as far as that goes. But I do find it so intriguing because, for example, in our neighborhood, there's a house for sale and they staged it. And 2 days ago, because we're quarantined and I'm riding my bike, I saw them like unloading all the furniture. And I was like, I know the house wasn't sold, but...
Or they probably wanted to stop paying for it.
Right. I just found that so interesting that it's like a lease. I guess it's like...
Yeah, you're basically leasing the furniture. It's not to be used. Like staging companies don't rent furniture. To be used.
Got it.
It's to be used in an empty house. And, and that's what's interesting. It's like when you go to models in new construction and you see the way the houses are decorated, they look beautiful when you walk through them. But if you really look at it and sit down on the couch or it's not comfortable.
No.
They're scaled differently. They're
There's
smaller.
no doors on anything.
Exactly. So it's I guess it's like using an airbrush to touch up a photograph. They put a lot of coverings on the wall.
They're props.
Yeah.
From my background of television and film, it's props. It's temporary.
Like if you go to GL Homes, they do a beautiful job. You go into their models. I've never seen so many wall treatments.
Right. All in one house.
All in one house. But you know what?
And ceiling details.
If you ever walked into a newly constructed house that has no options, it looks awful.
I know.
You see these expansive walls of sheetrock, it looks awful. And they do a brilliant job of either wallpapering them or...
Which is where most people, the majority of people, don't have the vision for what you're talking about, for that wall covering and what they should use and what colors they should use and patterns and layers and...
Well, and I even feel like for like companies like a GL, you are buying a mass-produced home or a track home. So how can you set yourself apart when your neighbor might have the exact same model as you?
Right.
So you want to have some character and personality, brought into that big house of sheetrock.
Yeah, and I think in their case, the designers that do that, I think they get credit for it, and they refer clients to.
So let's talk about Let's talk a little about what's going on in the world today with this virus. That's got to be. We know it's certainly hurting the real estate market, and I understand that at Engle and Volker, you've started and implemented a few different things. Or I know one thing especially you've done to try to reach out to give more information.
Yes, we've been really proactive because we feel that we're leaders in the industry and that we feel a responsibility to our clients that we give them accurate and real information. And I think between myself and our firm, we were founded in the 70s, which coincidentally is the same time that I kind of got into the business world. And, there's a lot of experience there. And we've seen since the 70s, starting with the Arab oil embargo, I've seen the peaks and valleys in the business, and each stock market correction or recession, at the time we're going through it, it's painful and it's frightening. But I think what experience brings you is perspective. And that's what's helped. Like this time, it's helped me personally because I've lived through a lot of this. I see a lot of like my kids' age, kids in their 30s, they only know one thing is prosperity. I remember as a kid listening to my grandparents that lived through the Depression, and I could never relate to what they had to go through. And a lot of the way they dealt with their finances and their approach to acquiring things, was completely different than, my parents' generation. And then, take it down to now to like the millennials.
Right. They don't know what to do with adversity.
No. And so I think that I feel responsible as a business owner in the community to be able to give accurate perspective on what's going on, even though at this point in time it's so fluid that nobody knows, is it going to be 2 months, 3 months, 6 months? But unlike other situations that we faced coming into this, all of the fundamentals of the economy here were quite strong. We're not over leveraged. Most of the low, we have a pretty low inventory. Most of the homeowners don't have mortgages. The ones that do were well qualified, put the appropriate amount, 20% down. So
now you have the Federal Reserve at almost zero. Mortgage
rates are at historical lows.
Yeah, I read that Zillow did a study on previous, I don't want to say pandemics, but serious situations like this, and they were in their study said that they believe that with this outbreak and so forth, that once it's through, home prices are going to pretty much stay the same. Right. We're not going to see a big drop, so that's great for the real estate market in itself.
Yeah, I think you're going to see pockets. You're going to see the major cities like New York is going to be harder hit than most. So you're going to see.
They were being kind of harder hit with taxes and everything.
Right,
People, I feel like, were coming this way, and
they've seen about a 20 to 25% drop off in their market value of their properties from the high. So it's all relative because they may not have bought high. Some, I'm sure some did, but it's really all relative to what your basis is. Just like in the stock market, you could have lost $500,000 in a day, but you really don't lose it until you sell it.
Right.
And
you have an opportunity still to wait for it to come back.
Exactly. So I think calmness has to prevail.
See, we believe that once this pandemic, we get through it, we believe that from TW Interior's perspective, business is going to pick up quite a bit. It will pick up because we believe that most homeowners or people who are looking to either move or change are going to probably stay where they are because I think home construction is going to be a little bit slower. A third of all of the building materials in this country come from China. And China has been, shut down for 2 months? Mm-hmm. So there's a factor that's going to affect the new home building, which will probably, we believe, will have a good effect for people who are looking to upgrade and change. So they're going to go into it in decorating, correct?
I think that when you quarantine, people have been home now 2 weeks.
They all want it done.
And now we're
they're motivated.
Now we're in for another month.
They're motivated.
And you're looking at, oh my God, either I love my house or I want to decorate it.
Right.
Because, we're spending more time home and enjoying it.
So do you have to get creative during this time of, is anybody looking at houses? Are you emailing people listings? I know you just spoke about the concept of even soliciting right now is.
There are people that are looking. We have, in South Florida, we have people that move down and are renting something, looking to buy the right thing for them. So you do have that, and there are people looking at showing Sunday. I had one on Friday, but we've had it change, and fortunately for us, being a German company, our technology is really second to none. So we've adapted. We're doing a lot of video presentations. We're meeting with our clients via video. I don't yet really think that somebody's going to buy a home through a video.
Right.
They're going to want to see it at some point. So
what about anybody coming down from the north to like quarantine to go throughout this? I've even noticed some of that on social media or what have you.
There's been a lot of that.
Can I rent a house to get out of?
We've had people willing to pay up to $50,000 a month for a furnished rental, large enough for
really
the families. In fact, last night one of my clients texted me because the house across the street from her was on the market. And all of a sudden, there's like 4 or 5 cars in the driveway, and they all have New York plates. And so I texted the agent who's listing it in. It was because it didn't look like it was sold on MLS. And I said, "Did you rent that house out?" And she said, "No, we actually sold it. It closed this past Friday, and they moved in over the weekend." And that was. Those were people getting out of New York.
Wow.
So I think we're going to see a tipping point. You have a lot of converging things going on. You have the baby boomers that are now empty nesters that live in the Northeast, and they're in houses that are pretty much, most of them paid for. And even though that market's going to take a hit, it's still overvalued
for what they are invested in.
Exactly. So they could come down here and buy a nice home and be done with it. And I think, I know personally a lot of people that have been flittering. Do they stay up north because their kids are up there, or, do we have a better life for ourselves? And so I think this is a tipping point, because people that are cooped up in apartments in Manhattan, or it's we're
going to see a big influx of people coming.
Yeah, I mean, down here we've not been as affected.
Oh, because
we're quarantined.
Good.
You're in the pool with your kids.
Yeah.
And, they don't have that up north. It's still miserable.
Some people don't even have balconies or anything. It's like you're literally quarantined.
You're going to see a lot of babies being born.
I know. I
9
love
months
those.
from now, and you're going to see a lot of divorces.
I know. I've seen all those funny memes. It's true.
There's a lot of
good ones.
So that gives me hope. The creativity in the memes, right, and even the turnaround in television commercials, how we've adapted to this is phenomenal. And I think as a country, that's who we are. I think we're resilient. We're strong. People aren't going to give up. And what's unique about this, it's the enemy is totally unidentified, and it doesn't discriminate against anybody, whether you're poor, wealthy,
where you live, where you came from.
So we're in it together. We're all in it together. We've all been neutralized, and I think as much of an economic disaster that this has caused, I think there's been a lot of good. I saw a meme that said, I guess we all weren't getting along, so God sent us
to our rooms. I have that one too.
I saw that. And when I saw that, I said, that's exactly what it feels like.
It does. And it does. It makes us all take a step back and look inside and spend quality time with those we live in the four walls with. I mean, I personally love having my kids home. But when it comes to me being home, I'm also wanting to redecorate.
But it really is like a reset for everybody to whether on a professional basis, work on your career.
Absolutely.
It's a good time to learn.
To launch certain things. I also saw one article, like how many businesses were built in the recession of, what was it, 2006 or whatever?
2008.
Yeah. All these amazing companies that came out of that time.
Yeah, I think be proactive. People are creative. There's a lot of good things happening. Like just in Delray Beach, in the town, is one of my fellow realtors formed a socially distant supper club.
Really?
And I think they have about 3,000 members now.
Okay. Ian Patterson did it too.
Yeah. Well, it's the same one.
Yeah.
Ian Patterson and John Brewer
That's awesome.
did it. And
For restaurants,
for
correct?
restaurants. So they pick a different restaurant every night.
Yeah, we saw
They
that.
put a menu out like 2 days in advance. So the restaurant could actually prepare and be ready for it.
And it's pretty inexpensive prices of what they're charging.
Yeah, very reasonable prices.
You call in, I guess, and they prepare it, and you drive up out front and pick it up. And each night it's promoting one restaurant, giving that restaurant a surgence of business.
Exactly.
Yeah, we had one of our favorite it's one of our favorite lunch stops.
Papa's Tapas was last
Yeah,
night.
they did it last night.
Yeah. We were going to do it, but it was like last minute for us.
I know. I think there's going to be a lot of great concepts that come about. And that's where also Delray shines,
And that's
where we live.
That's kind of design. It's designing a new business and designing a new way of trying to help out restaurants who have been hurt, and two people who've put a little bit of effort to that. We know one of them. It's a nice thing that they're doing.
Yeah, it's a very nice thing.
Yeah, because I think the night before was
Flybird. I think they did.
or I know
Sunday
was it Park Tavern?
Tavern
Tavern was
was.
Sunday night.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Flybird was maybe Friday night. But and the owner posted in Facebook that thanking them that he made payroll.
Isn't that amazing?
So it's sticking together instead of hoarding our cash and we all bought toilet paper and
I
food for a
know,
month.
right?
Do you stay home and cook or do you support
little of
these
both, yeah.
support these local businesses? And I think it makes us much more aware of how connected we all are, because as a
The world is small.
the world is very small, and as a community, how we're really dependent upon each other's successes.
I agree completely.
And I think the culture of our economy and social media was really the opposite. It was, people will climb over each other to get what they want. And the reality of it is
We're better together.
we're much better together. And you could have, spend an insane amount of money on the nicest car, but if you have nowhere to go, what good is it? And I really keep coming back to the word reset. I think that, as a society or a community, we're resetting to a much simpler time.
A little bit more neighborly too, which will also be great for the market in the long run too.
Yeah, it'll be much better, for the market. And yeah, it's like I was telling somebody, like when you see an accident on a highway, you slow down,
Right.
and then as soon as they're out of sight, you speed up. And I'm hoping that people don't forget what we've gone through. It's just like, living through a hurricane and the
I know,
neighborhood
which is
out
what
of
it
power.
feels like.
It brings us all together, and then once things get back to normal, it's like every man for themselves. Mm-hmm. So, like even with my business, we have every Tuesday brokers open houses. So it's a time for each of us to see each other's listings, because even though we compete with each other, we work cooperatively together and collaboratively. And this is, I guess, the third week that we really haven't had that. So I instituted I'm doing it on Zoom, a socially distant social hour for realtors. And the purpose of it is for all of us to have an outlet to talk to one another, other top producing agents, and even we invited everybody that's a realtor in the Delray community to join on it, because we have about 24 agents, and some people do well, some people don't do as well, and the ones that aren't are frightened.
Suffering.
And to them, I tell them this is a great time. I mean, there's so much education online. There's so many things that you could be doing.
Classes are popular right now, too.
Exactly.
So many, even for our kids resetting online, even though we want them to still read books and learn handwriting and everything, they also have been a little bit behind on the technology. So I feel like even myself, it's kind of pushing me to open new avenues.
Yeah. I had a few years ago started playing the guitar, and then I got just too busy to keep up with the lessons and the practicing. So I already did online, like some YouTube on playing some stuff, which
teaching
myself how to,
right,
how to play.
So you've been doing that during this sort of downtime.
During this downtime, I've been
coronavirus.
So how much time do you give that to focus on?
I've done probably an hour.
That's fantastic.
An hour a day. I play the drums, which I haven't really, played that much. So, I'm trying to do things that I didn't do. Well, I've listened to albums, which I haven't listened to in
music in the
ages,
house every
and
day,
it's a whole
too.
different experience listening to an album versus downloading songs.
On your
When
phone.
you listen to the whole album, it brings you back to exactly where you were.
Well, it's a different sound also.
Yeah.
We have the same thing in our house. We have a record player we've got all our old records. We do that with the kids every so often.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, I appreciate the difference in the sound than the digital sound. The record,
Yes.
the sound you get out of the record.
It's a much warmer.
Yep. Well, we really appreciate you coming in today and spending time with us and
It was my pleasure.
I know.
and going over things. We wish you continued success with Engle and Volkers and what you're doing here in the South Florida area. I think you're doing some incredible things, so keep it up.
Thank you.
This is Tiffany Woolley, your host of the iDesign Lab, along with my husband Scott, and today our wonderful guest, Lenny Felberbaum, hoping you will join us again here on the iDesign Lab podcast as we continue to explore the fabulous world of design.
iDesign Labs podcast is an SW Group production in association with the Scott Woolley Entertainment Company and TW Interiors. To learn more about iDesign Lab or TW Interiors, please visit twstyle.com.